I was part of the most elite, well-trained unit in the United States Navy for almost 10 years. No, it's not the Navy SEALs, my friend. It's the Navy Band. So it was the early 90s, and I've been in the band for about a year, just started traveling pretty extensively, and one of the guys that I was a roommate with, he asked me one day if I'd like to take over his English class, and he explained that he had taken over a number of businessmen and women, and they were mostly older, in their 50s and 60s, even 70s, and they wanted to learn conversational English. So they would hire Americans, and he said, hey, you just go there and you converse with them for a couple hours, tell them about different stories about America, and they just want to hear an English accent. And he said they're really nice and they love to party. They'll take you out karaokeing. Like I said, oh, that sounds pretty good to me, So he took me up to Yokohama one time. That was probably 45 minutes or so on the train from Yokosuka. And so we get up there, I meet all these businessmen and women. They were so amazingly polite. I mean, Japanese people really are just amazing, wonderful people. And these older businessmen and women, had at that time a pretty heavy Texas accent. So, they heard me speaking English and they liked my accent. And they said, yeah, we're going to hire you. So from that point forward, for the next, almost 3 years that I was stationed in Japan, I would go once a week when I was in town, and we would hang out for 2 hours, and I would sit in a classroom and just lecture them on, different aspects of America, what it was like, and just having conversational English, and they wanted to see what it was like. So it was great. And then, right away, back in that time, the economy was booming in Japan. So these, they had a massive spending account. And they would take me out a lot of times after we would do our 2-hour lesson. They would say, hey, come on, Hank, let's go out. And they would take me to karaoke. They love Jack Daniel's whiskey. So we would drink Jack Daniel's whiskey and some beers and sit around and sing karaoke till midnight or 1 a.m. And then I'd take the train back and hopefully make it to work on time the next day. You'll hear about that in a moment. So these part of the stories were happening in the early 1990s. And, like I said, at that time, Japan's economy was really booming. Tokyo was a very modern, large city, just people everywhere. We lived in a quieter place. It was Yokosuka, which is quite a bit south there, in another bay. And it was a lot different than Tokyo. You'd think when you get up near Tokyo, more skyscrapers, and then eventually just nothing but concrete and people everywhere and tall buildings. And at that time, I had heard there was no internet to look things up. Someone told me that one of my jazz favorites, Bob Mentzer, was playing at the Blue Note in Tokyo. Yeah, I was really fortunate to go to such an amazing high school. And the last year of my school, we had Bob Mentzer as our guest artist. And so Bob came and stayed with us for about a week, and he had commissioned a song for my high school. So we obviously learned the song and practiced it. And, he turned out to be just one of the most incredibly genuine and decent human beings you'll ever meet. Just a fantastic person. And just incredible saxophone player. I mean, every day that he was on the stage, almost jaw-dropping to hear how good he was, and he could just play in anything. And, any note he would hear while the big band playing, he could pretty much pick out and say, hey, second trombone, might want to write that's a flat back there on that note. He was just so keyed into everything big band music. And so at this point, he had started touring with the Yellow Jackets. So the Yellow Jackets consisted of Russell Ferrante, Jimmy Haslip, and at that time it was Will Kennedy on drums. And Russell and Jimmy Haslip had been the founding members of the Yellow Jackets, had been playing with this group for a long time. And this was one of the first shows that had Bob Mentzer playing with the group. So, he's really famous in the jazz world as a big band leader and a saxophonist and soloist. And he had just joined the group, so they were quickly evolving with a different sound with Bob Mentzer playing with them. And so at that point, it hadn't been that long ago that I had seen Bob Mentzer at my high school, and he probably wouldn't know me for the next person, But, we did spend a lot of time with him. He's a really nice guy. And I thought, you know what, I'll have to go down to Tokyo and see how much the tickets are and see if I could go see the show. And when I called the Blue Note back then, same thing, no cell phones. I had to go to the base and use their phone and call down to the Blue Note. And whoever answered the phone spoke English. And they said, oh, yes, the band. And they're going to do a sound check tomorrow at, I think it was 2 p.m. or something like that. So I thought, oh my God, maybe I'll go down and see the sound check. So I rode the subway into Tokyo and got out, and same thing, no Google Maps. I had to wander around and ask a whole bunch of people. Anyway, I'll finally find the club and I get to the front. There's a doorman there, and I explained to him, hey, I'm, talked to someone on the phone. I'm here to see the sound check. And, I'm thinking, oh, probably won't get in. The guy's like, oh, yeah, sure, come on down, have a seat. And he walks me down and sits me down at a table. And, the guys weren't there at that point. And I'm just sitting there. And all of a sudden, I see a couple of guys walking down the stairs. And the person that had brought me in, I said, I have met Bob Mentzer. I'd like to say hello. And just as the first person walked down the stairs, it was a black guy. And he said, oh, there's Bob. That's Bob Mentzer. And I thought, oh, maybe do I have the wrong Bob Mentzer, And so this guy walks up to me, and the gentleman says, oh, this is Hank, and he's met you before. And I said, oh, I'm terribly sorry. It can't be another Bob Mentzer, but I've met a saxophone. He goes, oh, no, I'm Will Kennedy. I'm the drummer for the Yellow Jackets. Bob's coming down the stairs in a second, and here comes Bob Mentzer walking down. And, he has a very distinctive look with a beard and everything. Real cool looking guy every time. Just like I said, very nice and humble and all. So here comes Bob walking down, and, I go over and shake his hand, and I said, oh, I went to the high school for the performing arts in Houston, and, you played a concert with us, and our instructor, Dr. Robert Morgan, got you out there. And he's, oh, I remember Doc. And yeah, fantastic. And, oh, your name's Hank. And I told him I was playing saxophone in Navy band. He thought that was really cool. So he said, oh, sit down and we're going to do our sound check. And we'll come talk to you after the sound check. Okay. So I said, oh, that's great. So I sit down at the table down in the Blue Note, and it's down in the basement at that time. It was kind of, I don't want to say dark and dingy. It was very nice, but it was underground, and it was a little bit dark once they closed the doors and everything. So stage lights come on, and bam, there they go into one of their songs, and it's just so incredible. I mean, they're really one of the most talented bands you'll ever hear. And, Bob Mentzer is one of my all-time favorite saxophonists. So to be that close and listening to them warm up and just kind of talk to each other about the set and stuff, it was pretty awesome. And so they get off the stage and they all come down and sit at the table around me. And Bob just starts saying, oh, hey guys, I played at the Houston Performing Arts High School, and Hank here was a saxophone player. He's in the Navy band. And all the guys, oh, the Navy, all right, thanks. And so we talked for a minute, and they said, by the way, we don't know anyone in Tokyo. So we're here for 2 days, and if you want to bring a friend, we'll give you 2 tickets tonight and tomorrow night, and we'll get your dinner and drinks and everything. Don't worry about anything. We got a full tab, and we don't know anybody here in Tokyo, so just bring a friend, and you guys will be our guests. And I thought, oh my God, how good is that? So, I shook all their hands after the sound check. I raced home. They were playing that night. Somehow I made it back to the base, and the first person I met was our drummer named Kevin, who's a really nice guy, very, very interesting. You meet people from a lot of different diverse backgrounds. And, Kevin was a pretty serious dude, but I ran back to the base and I said, oh my God, Kevin, you won't believe it. The Yellow Jackets are giving me 2 tickets for tonight. Do you want to come? And he said, oh, hell yeah. So we grabbed a couple of things, put some cash in our pockets, and we jumped on the train and immediately went back up into Tokyo to the Blue Note. And, by the time we got there, went up to the box office, and they had tickets with VIP with my name on it. It was pretty cool. So I was like, oh, Kevin, come on. And we go sit, and it's right in front of the stage. And so the just before the guys were getting up to play, they all came over real quick. And, oh, Hank, how you doing? And this is my mate Kevin. He's a drummer for the Navy band. He's a huge fan of you guys. And he loves you, Will Kennedy. And Will Kennedy laughed. He's like, all right, man, I hope I live up to your expectations, And they get up there and just played the most phenomenal set. And, of course, in Japan, the audience is just perfect. They're very polite. No one's talking. And, they were clapping at the right time. So I think it really made a warm welcome for the guys in the band. So they played, if they could play any better, they played better. It was a phenomenal night. And to top it all out, at the end, they came and sat down with us and they ate dinner with us. And just were so nice. And, they were all telling stories of our jazz legends. Bob Mentzer told some stories about Jaco Pastorius, and a couple of the other guys chimed in and just talked about different gigs they did around the world. And funny enough, Kevin and I was new to the band, but Kevin had already been in the Navy band for a while. So they were like, where did you play, Kevin? And he's like, well, I played in 27 different countries and played for this prime minister and played for this guy and that guy. They were like, oh, that's very impressive. All right. So I just had the phenomenal night. And then, of course, they said, hey, at the end of the night, tomorrow night, come back and bring someone else. So sure thing. I went back to the base and I brought out my best friend. That's John Sorensen. Yeah, and so the next night was so great again. I brought out John and the Yellow Jackets, just of course, they bring it every night. They just played the most phenomenal music. We were just awestruck, in a way. And kind of a repeat, we had dinner with them and they talked, more about their travels and who they played with and all that. And just had the best time ever. So, thank you, Bob Mentzer. Hopefully I'll run into him again one of these days down the road. And so, just another day in the Navy band experience. And once again, just same thing. Great hanging out with the Yellow Jackets. Such nice guys. And, that was the start of a great musical career for me. I was so new to the Navy band and just starting to get in the groove of thing with the guys. And I hope you tune in next time when I'll be heading off to a couple of new countries. And fair winds and following seas, everyone.